I have no clue.
Hey, Juventini, welcome to the All Juvecast. This is episode 151, and this is going to be an interesting one, to say the least. And I got Raph with me, I got Colin with me, and we're going to figure out where to even start with this one. Okay. A very, very disappointing day for Juventini, to say the least. That's to put it lightly. All right. Benevento beating Juventus 1-0. Juve getting a total of 1 point over 2 matches with Benevento this season. This is unbelievable. And I know that everybody's got comments and thoughts because, of course, what better timing than an interview with Allegri to come out and come to surface when everybody's been calling for this guy for a while. So, guys, oh man, there's no structure to this pod. We knew it was going to be a tough one to do. I think we go through the match real quick recap, and then get to our feelings, our thoughts, and everything kind of going through our minds, because that's the thing. Everybody seems to be all over the map. Big shout out to Antonio joining us, Alex P, Panju Kumar, and Alessandro right out of the hop here. Ciao, guys. We're going to do the quick recap and get to everything else, Allegri, Pirlo, and Agnelli. But guys, honestly, we saw the starting lineup. We knew Quad was out with suspension. We knew he still had some injuries. That lineup was fine enough to get the job done against Benevento. 4-4-2, I don't personally like it, but regardless, it's Benevento. Raph and I were talking about it earlier. We've still have been able to control play against all our opponents. It just comes down to execution, really. So this should have been good enough. Hey, guys? And we were all confident going into this match. I would have never guessed after 1 week between matches, we wouldn't be able to get the job done against Benevento, a team that started allowing goals like crazy, 10 goals in their past 4 matches, only scoring twice. I thought this is perfect for us. Week, lead up, work on things, get ready, and come out of the gate. Hard, get the job done. Well, we get to the match, and honestly, we started off good. Everybody was, and this is the thing when emotions run so high because you get so upset and whatnot. I watched this game back, and we had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity, and these guys cannot execute. 3 minutes in, CR7 makes a great move to a swim move on his defender, rips one just wide. 21st minute, ball falls to Danilo. I thought he should just blast that thing the same way the ball came. He had the lane, the sight of goal. He tried this side foot thing. He just did it with no conviction. Hits the only guy that's right in front of him. Wasted opportunity. 33rd minute, Morata gets in pretty clear. Rather soft shot, low, stopped by the keeper there. 34th minute, Juve gets a PK called, but it gets reviewed, and rightfully so, that it gets canceled out. 36th minute, corner kick, De Ligt gets to it, forces a save from the keeper, rebound falls to Morata, who just is wasteful there, not even hitting target. And we get to halftime, and I'm thinking, man, I'm not terribly concerned with Benevento. I'm concerned with these guys if they're going to get the goals here. That's how I was feeling at halftime. I wasn't concerned with Benevento that much. I was just like, guys, keep putting them under. Maybe put them under a little more. I just wanted a little more tempo and urgency. That's really how I felt at half. How'd you guys feel at halftime?
Not good, I'll be honest. I didn't see anything positive in the first half for Juve. I didn't go into the game with the a top level of confidence. I felt basically that Juve, while they had a good performance last time out against Cagliari. They had something to prove, and it was easier to get up for the game v Cagliari. That the real challenge would be to try and carry that attitude on with them to games following, and from the first 2 or 3 minutes, I could see Juve weren't at the races. I was, at halftime, I was feeling we need something big from the dressing room here. There needs to be a big talk. There needs to be guys getting fucking woken up big time, because it just wasn't good enough.
Yeah, Raph, your thoughts at halftime?
I thought it was Benevento, man. I thought no matter how the first half went with us wasting chances, I thought eventually, like, it's Benevento. Their run up to this game was terrible. Like, I didn't have a reason, no matter how badly we were playing, I didn't have a reason to think, okay, they're going to get something out of this, because they shouldn't have.
Exactly.
I was really expecting the players to be like, yo, Inter aren't playing this week. We have a chance to close the gap, put them under pressure. And again, nothing out of them, which was so disappointing.
And, let's go in the second half, key points, and then get into everything, because honestly, we kick off the second half and we get into a great position. 51st minute, Berna makes a nice overlapping run. His cross to absolutely nobody. Danilo gets to it on the opposite side. His cross, even worse than the first one. Again, the execution is just piss poor. And we have 4 guys in the area, and we can't even put it anywhere near one of our players. In the first half, too, I should mention, a lot of the crosses that we were putting in, we only had like one guy in the area on certain times. And it was just like, what are we doing here? What's our game plan? And this was the part that was frustrating me, is that they just didn't seem on the same page whatsoever. And then 53rd minute, free kick. At this point, I would choose Pinsolio to fucking take him over Ronaldo. Like, seriously, I tweeted that out because it's insane right now. Like, that's a great spot for a kick, and whatever, man. It is what it is. 57th minute, Kulishevsky in the area. Ball falls to him, makes a great move. His right foot, not so great. Slashes at it, just goes wide, dribbles away. Mess there. Again, in great area, though. And we're getting these opportunities. It's just, they're not executing. 65th minute, and CR7 takes a turn, takes a shot, and just goes wide from the top of the area. 67th minute, fast break from Kulishevsky. No idea, with Chiesa running right up the middle and the defense split because Morata and Ronaldo were on the far side. No idea why Kulishevsky would not just slot it ahead of Chiesa in stride. He tries to go across, the defender breaks it up, and a wasted counter where we have numbers. That is frustrating. In this whole little area around 60-some minute, what is an easy call for a PK to Juventus? By rule, that is as clear-cut as you can get. And that's the part that's frustrating. That even from listening to his earpiece, there's no look, there's nothing. Frustrating. But again, not something we should be looking at or needing against this side. And we were controlling play. It's one of those things that it's crazy to think how many times this club has been on the wrong end of these dubious decisions or non-decisions. You know what I mean? It's very
many times.
Very strange. Now, we continue on, and 68th minute, Pirlo protected Arthur in his interview post-match. But this was an awful decision. Absolutely awful decision by Arthur to play that ball there and not just go to Szczesny, or even just pump the damn thing up the damn pitch if you have to. But Szczesny was there. Just play it back to Szczesny. I know that a lot of Juventini were reaching out to me and they were talking about, well, this is what happens when you continue to play out of the back. No, That isn't just what happens. Like, the players have to have brains. We saw it against Porto. We saw it numerous times in Serie A. These guys have to be smarter than that. They have to be switched on at all moments of the match. They simply aren't. This was absolutely inexcusable. And again, it's a goal from our own stupidity and incompetence. How many of these goals have we taken this season? Too many. Way too many. You know what I mean? And now we move on, and I mean, 88th minute, in the late 80 minutes, we start pushing hard, and CR7, a cross falls to him. He makes a quick move and a shot, but the keeper makes a good save. 89th minute, again, a ball falls to CR7. Shot stopped, and Danilo on a follow-up, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just misses completely, makes a mess of it. And the match ends. And for me, it's highlighted again with awful execution. That's literally how I can put it. Does Pirlo need criticism? I think formation or anything aside, we controlled this game and just couldn't create enough, and the players couldn't execute when the opportunities did come. So regardless of how people feel about Pirlo, these guys have to be better. They have to be better. And to sum it up, Cristiano Ronaldo is worth more than the entire Benevento squad.
That's a fact that you could probably put against most sides in Europe, bar about a handful of them. You know, I think Pirlo does come in for some criticism, and it goes back to the point that I made earlier on. It isn't just tactical. The job at hand is to get the team motivated, focused for a really tough challenge. It's easy to motivate after a huge loss and a huge exit because you're fighting for your life. But to actually continue that on and use it to fuel the next performance, instead we see something flat. We see a lack of focus, a lack of execution, as you pointed out. That's all mental. That's all mental. And it's part of the coaching staff's job is to get guys focused. So he does come in for some criticism there. It is a small percentage, but it is part of his job.
Yeah, but for me, it's like, again, why I'm struggling with this particular match is, again, it's one we controlled. We controlled this match. We just literally, the part that I'm bothered with, and I would bring Pirlo into it, is that there's no plans. They just look to not have a plan. Okay, like in the first half, so many crosses going in there when there's one guy in the area or whatnot, and then it was like in the second half, all of a sudden you see overlapping runs on the flanks, and it's like, okay, now we're going to play that cross game, try and get to the byline, and then have them in. Okay, great. But then the crosses themselves were just shit and whatnot. And motivation or not, I'd say if it was, and it was pretty flat from a tempo standpoint in the first half. This is an issue that's been around for a while though with Juve. And it's like, I'm starting to really, really question this club, like on all levels. I already was, but I don't know what else a guy could really do. Like, we haven't been owned by many clubs, many matches this season. And for me, it's just, again, the execution's just piss poor. Raph, you were kind of speaking to it before. What your thoughts on execution, motivation, everything in general? What were you thinking?
So going off yesterday, like, I'm literally just looking at the stats now. We had 73% of the ball possession. We had 21 shots on target, and we had 4 big chances and 4 big chances missed. That sums up the story of our season in front of goal.
Yeah.
We always, except of maybe Barcelona the first game, Fiorentina when we were 10 men down for 90 minutes, Inter, which was just a mess of a game, and what was the other one? Roma, where we were sitting back for the 90 minutes. Other than those 4 games, I cannot remember a game where we were on the back foot and just not creating anything. We, again, today had dominated the possession, outshot them and had 4 big chances and we missed all of them. That just
Yeah.
shows the mentality of the team in front of goal. And to just top that all off, at the back, we have Artur, who plays that ball across goal. He feathers it to Danilo,
Yeah.
and the team capitalize off that. That is not a case of, well, Pirlo's system is a mess. Because, again, we created the big chances. We had 4, and we missed all of them. Artur makes a mistake at the back. I'm not going to hold Pirlo entirely accountable for that. Some blame is to go for him, but to single him out like I'm seeing people doing is a joke.
Yeah.
Because it's the same thing that we've been seeing all season. We've had the chances. We just didn't take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, Raph, and I agree with you. Like, we can give him some part of it, of the blame, but you can't, like, because it's unrealistic to say, you know, we've had a terrible season and it's gone to shit with 10 or 11 games to go and the coach has no responsibility. That's just not realistic. But I certainly wouldn't give him. I certainly wouldn't hang him out to dry the way people are, and call him for ex-coaches, for ghosts from the past to come back, which is just madness. Like, I cannot believe the shit I'm hearing from people. And you know, I don't give a fuck if anyone decides. Like, everyone, go and unfollow me if you disagree. I really couldn't give a shit. Ghosts from the past coming up, and you want them to come back or something like that. Fuck off. Honestly, it's over. It's done. Like, I don't care. Either get behind the project or fuck off, as I said. And that's the way I look at it. But I mean, also, just to come back to the statistics, like the key ones for me that you mentioned are the big chances on goal. I mean, I can't, like, we had a 73% possession, fair enough, but like, that does, you know, and you can look at that and you can think, okay, well, we control the game. You don't control the game. The only way you control the game is on the scoreboard. If you score and then you have 73% possession, that's called controlling the game. We did not go out there and do the damage. That's the problem. So we had all the possession. That's great, but that's not controlling the game. Well, especially when the opposition are coming at you and looking dangerous every single time they do, which was the problem. They were looking dangerous because we turned the ball over in midfield and they broke directly onto our back 4.
And there you go, though. Why are we turning the ball over there? I saw so much lackadaisical fucking play from our guys in possession. And that is, again, not something that is in a manager's hands for me.
Yeah.
These guys have to be smarter. They have to be quicker on the ball. Like, I saw so many turnovers that were complete shit from Juve, like just garbage. And again, like, controlling the match or whatnot. Okay, Benevento, sure, you could say they looked dangerous in their few opportunities, but that's because we had to commit guys forward because they had a 5-man wall again, which is not something that's new to Juventus struggling with. Juventus has struggled every single time a team plays 5 across the back to create chances. In this one, we actually were getting chances falling to us. Even if it was a little bit of a shit show how it came down, the guys just did nothing with them. With the one part with Pirlo, I will say that frustrates the fucking hell out of me. We saw a different type of chemistry against Lazio in that switch in the setup. He didn't go back to it. For that, I criticize him heavily because for me, this 4-4-2 thing, it's a dead formation. I have PTSD from 4-4-2 going into a 4-2-4 from Ventura. Okay, so I don't like it as it is. Okay, so man, it's a dead formation. He saw something against Lazio, even if he stumbled across it, even if it was by chance because of injuries, suspensions, or anything, he saw something. He hasn't gone back to it since. And for me, if you see something and it looks that big a difference, the guys seem to look more comfortable in it, you have to give it an honest opportunity. And for that, I criticize Pirlo. For that,
I have to say I agree with you there. And I've made shouts pre-game since Lazio where, you know, I really hoped they would go back to that, because I wanted to see Ronaldo fit into it and see where he would fit into it, just to give it a chance. You know, I mean, it was always possible that he would go into it and not fit in at all, because, you know, while he plays inside left for United and Madrid for his whole career, he doesn't quite have those legs anymore, and he's not going to be able to track back. And he certainly will not play up top on his own. So that's kind of, maybe that's why Pirlo hasn't gone for it, because if you remember back to that Lazio game when Ronaldo came on, we didn't quite look as good as we did in the first half, or you know, when we had Kulusevski, Chiesa, and Morata up front. So I think maybe that's why we haven't seen that.
Yeah, and you know, like now I have already see all these messages here and whatnot coming in on Pirlo and whatnot, but ultimately for me, I think it comes. Let's go right to the beginning when Pirlo was hired. Okay, instantly in my mind, my fear was this is the board's way. And I said this on a pod. It's out there. Everyone that's following the show heard it. My fear was they've brought in a guy where the expectations are literally zero. And this is their way where it's a club legend. Fans will be more tolerant. And if it goes wrong, they have their fall guy to cover up for the shit business they've done for several years. That was my fear. And I hope that to God it wasn't true, and that if they brought Pirlo in, they would back him, and that they would, give him an honest go and whatnot. Looking at this season, he has done, like, the parts he's failing at, the parts where we're criticizing him with, it's not something I expect for him to have dialed in his first ever gig. You know what I mean? And the guy that everybody's talking about, that, of course, how timely the interview comes out with Allegri. Allegri even specifically said in this interview, I think Pirlo's doing a good job. And if you look at things as a whole and you have perspective, that it's actually, you know, he's like, everybody's focusing on the negatives, but the positives are there, you know. And a Coppa Italia, a Supercoppa in his first go-around, I mean, the league's not falling to us, but again, how many matches has it been that we've talked about execution and our players just simply not holding up their end of the bargain?
Yeah, it's been a theme. It's been a huge theme of the season for Juve. What can I say? Like, I don't blame Pirlo completely. I think you kind of touched on something there as well with the, you know, when they hired him, expectation levels for the Juve fans needed to be readjusted. Now, like,
I actually laughed, Colin. Yeah, I actually laughed when Agnelli came out and said that the expectations are still all the same. It was either him or Baratici. I laughed. I quote tweeted it and I said, "This is ridiculous." Because if you're trying to tell me in the same breath, expectations remain the same, but you hired a guy that the next week had his scheduled coaching course.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And even his second in charge didn't have the best of game records. I think Tudor was I think they were happy enough to get rid of him in
I think
split.
The way I can put it best is I'm not protecting Pirlo. I don't think he's definitely not free and clear of any blame or whatnot. But in terms of expectations,
yeah,
I think if people adjusted them from the get-go, I think he'd be falling in line with those expectations. If people had expectations of him winning the treble and us not getting it, that's not on Pirlo. That's on the people that have set those expectations. That's how I feel. And if you guys are upset that we're not going to pull off the league or whatnot, start looking at the board who put him in charge. That's like saying, I've got this Ferrari outside. Oh, here's a kid doesn't even have his license yet, but hey, why don't you go take that thing for a spin? He wraps the thing around a tree, and then I get mad at the kid, or should I get mad at myself for giving him the fucking keys?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Sorry, can I just touch on it quickly?
No,
That's
go ahead, yeah.
Pirlo came in last season with, from what I've read, he was going to be, of course, he was going to be the under-23 coach. We knew that. And the Pirlo project was always in sight for Agnelli. So I feel like the under-23 stint would have been a time for him to develop as a coach. Understand his philosophy, what he wants to play, the type of football he wants to play, develop in the youth team. And then maybe when the time's right, become an assistant coach under an experienced manager here. And then maybe after that, I heard that Pirlo was always in line to eventually take over as manager. But what we did is we literally threw him in the firing line from the get-go and put him in pretty much deep shit, because we have come out of last season with Sarri with the expectations of we wanted the Champions League. We've always wanted the treble since Allegri was here. And now we're still living those expectations under Pirlo. Because a couple of weeks ago, when we came out of January with those that run of form, we were like, yo, we're still in the league. We've just won the Supercoppa. We're still in the Champions League against Porto. We can do it. But realistically, from the start of the season, did any of us have those expectations? No. And of course, Pirlo is going to come out in his pressers and say, yo, like, I'm here. I'm not afraid of the job. I'm coming here to win everything. Of course, he's going to say that. He's not going to say, well, I'm new to the job, you know. I'm going to find my feet. He's going to come out and say that. But it's on Agnelli to make sure that if you appoint a manager that knows what he's doing, if your expectations are high like this, up here. Yeah. And if we're saying that we have a project, we're going to follow through the Pirlo project. This morning, I'm reading that his job's now in doubt. And again, it comes back to Agnelli. Agnelli, what do you want? What do you want out of this team? Do you want to rebuild a project, or are you looking to win everything right now? And if you're looking to build a project, commit to that. Provide. Don't throw people in the firing line and then use them as excuses for when you fail.
Yeah.
I think Agnelli does know, and I think he has been on the rebuild for quite a while, but I don't know if it's been effectively communicated to the fan base. The fan base are still operating off the, winning is the only thing matters, and it's sometimes it's not realistic. And it's just not. I don't know if you've been a fan for a long time. For me, it's been mid-90s. There's always been kind of periods where, Juve haven't been at the races. Do you know what I mean? And like we've had great squads and still somehow haven't done the business. But I mean, particularly when I look back at the late 90s, early 2000s, when we great players like Zidane, we fucking Del Piero coming back from an injury, and shit didn't work out. Do you know what I mean? There was always kind of something, and so like to have 9 straight Scudettos it's an anomaly. It's a fucking and it's definitely inflated the fan base's expectations completely,
But the thing is, here's the thing, and this is the part that really gets you. So going back to that reference, and just using that Ferrari example or whatnot, Luis coming in saying it's all fine and good, but if the kid wrecks the Ferrari, you fix it up for him to drive again. Here's the thing. This is what's interesting about this comment, okay? Everybody that's shouting for Allegri, and I made a statement yesterday saying that I think people need to get over it, okay? Move on. Like the time came naturally for me. It became stale with Allegri. There was some type of change needed. We all at that point thought our roster was better than what we were producing on the pitch. That was the common theme amongst speaking with Juventini and whatnot. Everybody thought we should be playing better. We should be doing more. And the thing is that while we were winning Serie A, okay, we won Serie A. The league is way stronger now than it was 2 years ago. somebody tried to challenge me on that, and I absolutely cannot accept that, because you go from literally competing against two teams with pitiful resources, to be honest, to now dealing with 5, possibly 6 that are all like easily can beat one another on any given day and are all in the mix, really. Merda, of course, pulling away, and Merda only taking really 2 seasons to catch right up to Juve, who have been dominating for a decade, because we didn't set that gap. And who's that on? Whose shoulders does that fall on, that we couldn't separate ourselves? And here's the other thing. People that are calling for the Allegri back, that were battling me, and I said, look, we started to falter in first legs all over the place. And we needed to resort to those big comebacks. Yeah, they're great memories and whatnot, but holy shit, do you want to make a living by having to do that all the time? First legs, like, again, whatever it was, execution, like mental collapses, whatnot, but inviting pressure, defensive, whatever you want to call it, pragmatic approach. Regardless, it was happening. And I think it was a fair question to ask after dominating domestically. Do we make the next step? Is this the guy that takes us to the next? It was a fair question. So those people said, well, that wasn't his fault. The team needed a rebuild. Okay. All right. So you're saying that the team needed a rebuild back then. Okay. Have we got that rebuild?
That's exactly what I wanted to say. The Ferrari's been wrecked for years. The Ferrari's been wrecked for years.
Exactly. Where was this rebuild? So now all of a sudden, if you're telling me a guy of Allegri's stature needed a rebuild, we're going to shit on a first-time manager
who's picking up the
who
scrap.
Still hasn't seen a rebuild? I think the board needs to take a look in the fucking mirror. So what it comes down to, I looked up some stuff, kind of going back to, and it was very, very interesting to see. From 2012 to 2015, do you know that we averaged 27 goals out of the midfield? You know what we scored out of the midfield last season? 7. 7 goals from our midfielders collectively last season. And it's been on a steady decline since 2015, dropping to 16, dropping to 12, went up in 2017-18 to about 17, but that's factoring guys that were hybrid type players. Okay. 7 goals last season out of the midfield. And we go back to the signing of Gonzalo Higuain, because I got into this discussion with somebody and they were fighting me on it very, very adamantly, saying we had to go out and get him. Bullshit. At that moment when Higuain came in, we had just lost Vidal, Pirlo, and we lost Pogba that season. So Pirlo and Tevez, obviously. Pirlo, Tevez, and Vidal the season prior.
Yeah.
The season that Higuain came in was obviously Pogba going out. So you just took away all those guys. You added in Higuain because you needed that striker. Our strike force that season that we were coming off of 2015-16, we finished with 2 goals more adding in Higuain. And we didn't even boost the midfield. We brought in Pjanic, who was an attacking mid at Roma, to play Richie.
Yeah.
And credit to Pjanic, he did well, but our solution was Pjanic and a free Khedira, whatnot. And honestly, Khedira had injury troubles before we took him on that free. He did fine his first season with Juve, but the injuries started to creep up. He actually even did decent in 17-18. He was actually, to be honest, one of the leaders out of the midfield for goals. So my thing is, you went and started dumping money into these big transfers. And for me, that was to hurt the rival. But was it the right decision? Was it the right move? You bring in Higuain, take all that money from Pogba, dump it into Higuain. You still have a noticeable, significant drop out of the goals out of your midfield. And you had a strike force that still produced the same amount of goals that you had out of your strike force, bringing in Higuain.
Yeah.
You just split amongst different guys. You were losing all the luxury goals out of the middle that could be game breakers, and that's a massive, massive difference when you're scoring 27 something out of the midfield and you go down to 7 now where we are at now. And it's crazy to me. We keep neglecting this thing, and we keep doing this patchwork. And the names, when you go down this list, it's just not up to par on guys they brought in. We have to be honest.
No, it's not. You're right.
No,
You're 100% right. And the argument for Ronaldo leaving, like for me, I've always said, okay, I can handle Ronaldo leaving. I've seen players just as big for Juve leave, but how do you replace him? So it goes to your point there. How do you replace the goals? Well, you bring in, you spread it out over the team. You've got to replace midfielders, number 8s, and potentially a number 10 who was going to contribute at least, 7, 8, 9, 10 goals a season. That's what an attacking midfielder is. We've brought guys in like Ramsey. The guy couldn't hit a barn door with a shot. And we're calling him an attacking midfielder. Not a hope. He does he's got a few technical skills. That's it. The guy, goal contributions, goals scored. I mean, he doesn't compare against any proper attacking midfielder out there in the world right now. That's what we've been living on. So if you do replace Ronaldo, you have to get guys who are going to contribute goals and assists. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's just replacing one. You got to go equal or better quality, and we've let that area slide for so long. And then when you make those big money moves, you start doing patchwork everywhere else. The Higuain thing, I was the rebuttal was, well, we needed a guy for Europe. It still doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, but he shit his pants in Europe, unfortunately, and that was the thing.
It still wouldn't have made sense because your strike force was doing great. Your strike force was playing fantastic, and then he comes along. Okay, great, that's great. Higuain comes on, him and Dybala, they hit the ground running. Everything's fine. Okay, cool. We'll deal with that. After that, again, Matuidi ends up being a midfielder that we spend 30 million euros on. Work rate was there. The technical ability, though, does he help supply those goals?
No.
Was he the right guy at that time? I don't necessarily know. You get Bentancur comes in. He's a youngster, though. Like, so young. You're never going to bank on him at that time. He was getting very, very few minutes. And this is another thing with the Allegri thing and why this interview. Let's start talking about this interview because everybody's got that fresh in their brain. This is the part that bugs me about the interview. Everything he's saying, everything that was said is like almost, it's contradicting the way he operated. Especially when he was talking about the young guys. Bullshit.
He never brought any of them through, which is bullshit. 100% agree.
He's talking about that. He's talking about, not playing out of the back, and almost like it's a slight to Pirlo or whatnot, but he's talking about not playing out of the back. And he says, well, if they played, I looked at the possession against Chievo, Buffon held the ball for about 1:40 and the defenders 40 seconds. And I said, look, it's your option. You could pass back to Buffon or you play with no goalkeeper. Fuck, the entire last 2 seasons of his tenure, we were playing all the way back to the keeper and restarting every time. Everything I've heard in this interview is so contradicting, but he did say that Pirlo's doing a good job and you have to have perspective. But then he started talking about Italians and their mentality and how they're doing in Europe. Man, he was so pragmatic. We talked about the first legs he started dropping. Like, for me, things changed with Allegri after Cardiff. They changed, and that's just how I saw it. But Raph, your thoughts on some of the interview and some of the points you wanted to touch on, and then we'll get to Colin's.
Actually, I'll touch on that later. They're doing some construction. There's background noise, so I'll wait for it to drop and I'll let Colin do his
Sounds good. Colin, this interview.
Yeah. A couple of things at a high level points that I want to bring up. Like the timing of it. So yeah, people jumped on it and they're like, okay, we want Allegri back. I mean, first of all, you got to understand, for him to be doing an interview like that with Sky Sport Italia is a huge middle finger to Juventus as a club. So that means your idea of Allegri coming back, forget about, like, he'd be lucky to get invited to the Juventus stadium ever again. If he did, he'd be getting the cheapest seat in the house. So forget about it. Obviously, the pragmatism part of it, he's one of the most pragmatic coaches we've had. The playing style, I mean, it was abysmal towards the end. And the key factor in the whole thing is, like, all of those points I made there. I mean, you can change them. You can change playing squad. You can do a rebuild. You can do all of that stuff if you have the buy-in of the dressing room and obviously upper management. And he didn't. He lost it. So you can't lead a team if no one's going to follow you. You just can't. And like I'm kind of annoyed talking about it. For me, it's in the past. I've forgotten about it. You know me, Al. I've spoken to you about it already. Don't be bringing up ghosts of the past. Forget about it. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to say that, like, just bring Marcello Lippi back. Do you know what I mean? What do you? I mean,
I saw somebody make a post, and yesterday, of course, they presented Ronaldo with his jersey for 770 goals that had GOAT on the back of it. It just really summed things up for me. You present this guy with his jersey, you put GOAT on the back of it, which just reeks of all the shit I laugh about Barcelona for. But it was pretty cringe for me. But they do it regardless. And then you drop an absolute stinker against fucking Benevento and lose the game. And it just pretty much fucking sums up where this club is at for me. And it starts from the top all the way down. There's nobody that's free and clear of criticism at all levels. But for me, we hear about the shakeup in the locker room and Agnelli apparently shouting and whatnot. We don't know if players were involved. It says now Pirlo, his future is unclear, whatnot. If you were another manager, what in the fuck would draw you to Juve? With the board acting the way they have and doing what they're doing again. And again, just looking at the games, just watching the games and the players and their execution just being absolute junk. It's crazy to me. But if you're a manager, I just don't see what they're creating as being anything desirable by any means. The other thing too is these rumors of these interviews or meetings that are going to take place today. I spoke with Mirko Di Natale, and apparently there's nothing out there right now, and they are just rumors. No meetings that he knows about that have been set up for today. But yeah, it's crazy to me to think of where Juve has fallen, and I don't want to get big into the Ronaldo thing. Okay.
Yeah, I know. I kind of touched on it there. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to get big into the Ronaldo side of things, but our spine, let's leave it this spine, our nucleus of players, the core has changed. Allegri did speak to that. Okay. And he said, these guys, it's changing. And one of the things that worked for Allegri that he had was he had the core at the right time. He had the guys that would go out there and they would find a way. Pirlo doesn't have those guys right now. Pirlo's banking on a 20-year-old Swedish kid that can't find his home in any position right now. You know, we're banking way too much on Chiesa, young Chiesa.
Arthur as well.
You know, you've got Arthur as the only guy that can be a possession guy in the middle of the park. He's banking on all these guys, and they're not our core. You know what I mean? Like, Allegri had the spine, and he could always fall back on the spine guys, and they would get it done. He had excess of those guys because he had Lichtsteiner that even towards the end he could pull off the bench that would change a game, impact.
He scored that against Spurs in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And that's a guy on the last legs of his career.
Yeah. Last legs of his career still could do it and make that impact. Allegri had the core guys at the right time. And this is why I say I don't really think it matters a whole bunch who you put in there right now. They would struggle. The part that bugs me is that people are jumping on blurbs out of this interview and fucking rifling at Pirlo with it. So when Allegri comes out and says, well, Bentancur cannot play in front of the defense, in my opinion, that's fine.
Oh, shit.
That's fine. The question should have been, who would you have put there instead in that match against Porto?
Yeah.
That's the question that should have been asked to Allegri, not do you think Bentancur can play in front of fucking goal or the defense? Who would you have played in that Porto match aside? Because Pirlo had no fucking options. It was him or Rabiot. Pick your poison.
Yeah. Those are the same players. And Rabiot are the same guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've all come to this. We've all come to the common knowledge that, you know, outside of Artur, I don't think there's anybody that kind of plays in that role. We saw Danilo that could kind of do it, whatnot. But again, that's not a midfielder, and you're using him at other times. He stumbled upon that against Lazio after thinking about it for a while. So this is the question I would have asked Allegri. I don't want you to tell me that Bentancur can't play in front of defense. What was Pirlo's options in that match? And that would have probably been a better way to kind of get his gauge on Pirlo. Overall, he did say Pirlo was doing a good job in all perspective. But these are the things that I'm getting at. Allegri had the fucking spine. When teams wanted to park the bus against Juventus, he had a Mario Mandzukic that would go through a fucking wall to get to those balls in the area.
Break down the door, basically. Yeah.
He had a Mario Mandzukic that would fucking, you know what, throw the crosses in there. I'll fucking get in there. And if I can't, space is going to open up because I'm going to just wreak havoc. Who's doing that now?
And that's the issue, man. This season, everything we've been saying is lack of mentality. Guys like Mandzukic were mentality monsters, yo. He didn't have the technical ability of like a Luis Suarez as a number 9. He wouldn't bang as many goals in as a Luis Suarez. However, in times where things got tough, the mentality monsters came out. Mandzukic would be there. Guys like Chiellini in his prime would be sorry, my throat. Guys like Chiellini would be there. Prime Buffon would be there. We had a spine of mentality monsters and actual quality players. The spine is withering. The spine are on their last legs. These guys are gone. We haven't built in the process of them fading away. We're just now at this point where like we need a flipping overhaul. Yeah. We haven't gradually replaced them. We didn't see guys like Mandzukic going out and being like, okay, like who do we replace that would give us that same fight? Chiellini and Bonucci have been banking on them until last season. It was only when Chiellini got injured that De Ligt came into the fold and was thrown into the deep end. Already he had experience, but it's all very reactionary. When things go south, that's when, oh shit, we need to do something. It's never been a process. That's why now we're panicking, because now we're thinking we need a complete overhaul. We don't have any mentality players in the squad. We don't have that. They all left and we didn't replace them in the process. That's been the issue.
Yeah. And this is the thing. When you get, okay, and this thing, for people that want to protect Allegri and just say, well, he needed the rebuild that like I was facing yesterday. Well, he needed a rebuild. Okay. You still went through another coach and now you're on a third in 3 seasons. And that rebuild hasn't taken shape. And whether it's COVID affected or not, it just still hasn't taken place. So to demand so much, even if we were going to do better with say Allegri was there this year and we would do a bit better. I don't think it would be an awful lot better because of how much shit this roster's dealt with. We're asking for consistency. We're asking for continuity when our fucking lineup, it can't be continuous and consistent because of injuries, because of COVID, because of all this shit going on. You know, it's crazy to the demands, the expectations when the mess of shit we're dealing with. I honestly, truly do believe if you had Allegri here, it would be a bit better in terms of the adjustments, mid-game and stuff like that. But do the results change when so much execution is piss poor from the guys? I don't really know. I'm not buying into this full confidence that people have that just solely a manager is going to fix this. I'm not seeing that. I don't really know. And again, when we highlight the caliber of the guys we have in the middle and a bunch of them being the same and the amount of goals we're getting out of the midfield compared to years prior, you know, and I guess that was a insane midfield or whatnot, but the support for the forwards not there. You know, it isn't. And one of the things that Del Piero came out and said in Del Piero's interview was, Ronaldo, you have to build the team for him. We have not done that. And people have to understand that that is not a Pirlo problem. That is not an Allegri problem. That is not a Sarri problem. We just couldn't afford this luxury player. And somewhere along the lines, from when we started this journey, this dynasty, till now, we lost our way on how we got there. We just kind of lost focus a bit. You have your group of fans that seem to think it's kind of fallen on marketing, exposure, all this. Mm-hmm. And we kind of got away from the fucking basics, which is what's right in front of you and what's on the pitch and are the players Juve caliber. But Ronaldo, we didn't hold up our end of the bargain. No, that's absolutely. As easy as you could put it.
That's exactly what I said last week, yo.
Yeah.
I said the last time on the pod, like, Del Piero said the exact same thing I did. He was like, yo, you guys signed Ronaldo and you gave him nobody behind him.
That's exactly it. There's just nothing, no other way to put it. But if you can't provide him with enough service, you know, and even in this match, another thing I would have criticized Pirlo for was, you've got 5 at the back with Benevento, but they were still playing fairly open. Stop the drifting from CR. Don't keep Chiesa so far out wide. Start getting Chiesa more involved. I thought Chiesa didn't need to be hugging the sideline for the match's entirety. You know what I mean? Whether it was the left side or the right side, which they then switched off there. But, man, they've got to figure that part out, right? And this is one of the things, those in-game adjustments. Pirlo tried there with switching case, but he just can't be hugging the sideline. He's been our most dangerous player. And this goes back to things too. Us banking on these young guys to make a difference. The spine is gone. The spine has changed. You know, we had to rely on a guy that Pirlo didn't feel comfortable with for the earlier part of the season, Demiral. We had to start relying on him in Champions League. Whether people feel it's right or wrong, you know, if Pirlo was wrong and not going with Demiral or whatnot, the thing is that the spine is changing. And all the shit that was bailing Allegri out, it's not there anymore to bail the next guys out. What I will say about when Allegri left, and this is where I think just Juve has been, it just feels like they're scrambling. And it feels like they scrambled after they got rid of Allegri. It was almost like there was no actual plan. So this is what's infuriating about Paratici's words yesterday about, oh, we're still going with this plan. What fucking plan? What direction? What is the club trying to achieve? Because if you're talking about an actual reshaping, a rebuilding or whatnot, but then you're going in and fucking laying into your manager after a match, even if it's a 1-0 loss to Benevento, which I agree is completely unacceptable. But are we watching the same games as Agnelli is from the stands or whatnot? Like, I'd be pissed at the guys that I brought in because I'm fucking providing my managers with subpar shit, to be honest.
Yeah,
and I think
absolutely.
Agnelli's got to look at himself in the mirror, and that's the most frustrating part for me. He's creating an environment that if you were a manager across Europe, why would you take? Let's get your guys' thoughts on Agnelli quick before we go on to some questions from Juventini here in the next segment. Just let's speak to Agnelli.
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of Agnelli. He's done amazing things for the club, but like right now, they're in a real situation where they've brought in players who just are not up to Juve's standards. They've not strengthened in areas of the field. I mean, not just midfield. We need a striker at the moment. We need at least 2 fullbacks. Like currently we have, I mean, Cuadrado didn't play yesterday, and we had Danilo, who hasn't played fullback all season really, and since he's moved from the fullback position, he's been excellent everywhere else, and he had to play yesterday in fullback, and it didn't go well for him either. But we have Bernardeschi on the left. I mean, and I was kind of behind the project to convert him because I saw some good performances from him and a good attitude in the last number of games. But and maybe we can touch on this later, but do people feel it's worked out, or is working out that change? But back to Agnelli, like, I mean, at this point, we need to cut our losses. We have players in that squad that need to go, and whether we make money from them or not, they need to go. We need to find places for them, and they just have to go. Like, you can't. And it can't be a thing of, it takes another 3 years to try and get, these guys out. Do you know what I mean? Like as we've seen, like in the last few years, we just can't. They have to go. Like, there's a big rebuild on. Whether we like it or not, we need 2 to 3 midfielders, a couple of fullbacks, and a striker. Yeah, that's a lot.
That's the part that frustrates me again when we go back into Mercados, and it's not necessarily the names. I've always said it's the positions you're giving up without the coverage. That's the part that's frustrating the most, when we look at windows. And now you start looking at some of the latest transfers, and you have to really question, like, even the move for Kulishevsky, buying him so early in that season at 40 mil, not knowing how the season would end, where you would need your help and whatnot. You start to question that. It's a good chunk of change. And especially then to bring in Chiesa as well. And obviously Chiesa being the more impactful out of the two. But you were like, shit, man, are we not going to get a fullback? Like, what? You know what I mean? You're still asking questions. Because we had Arthur coming in, and I think people expected quite a bit more from Arthur, and thought he would be this different type of player. You ask the question, you're like, man, we brought in another winger, and then you brought in another one, but then it was like, oh, Pirlo's going to play this 3-5-2 or whatever, and you're thinking, oh shit, okay, Chiesa as a wing back, interesting. And the whole first half of the season went experimenting. You know what I mean? And be careful what you ask for, because now all of a sudden you bring in someone else. You start experimenting all over again. And at some point, you just got to bite the bullet. But here's now where we get to, because this one popped up a lot on the questions. Pirlo, if you do the full rebuild, is it worth keeping him around, or do you just bring in someone experienced?
Keep him.
Keep him.
If you're gonna rebuild a team around a guy who's making demands for the team, you keep him. You don't then just give that squad to another manager. You don't do that. If you rebuild the squad and Pirlo says, I want this, and this player, why would you then get rid of him and get someone else in who has a completely different system. There's no point. If then next season Pirlo has this squad and we're having the same performances, you ask questions to Pirlo. You're like, yo, you got the players. Now you need to fix up. But Agnelli, from a business standpoint, he's amazing. When it comes to football, I feel like he doesn't have much of a clue when it comes to players and positions we need. I feel like the Allegri years were he saw Allegri win with scraps that he was getting, and he kind of thought he could carry that on. He was just giving the manager players and saying, yo, do what you can. Here's Kulusevski, try and fit him into the team. He doesn't sign players with a project thinking, okay, we need to address this, and this position and build from there. He just signs players where it seems fit. And that's the issue. If you're going to sign players now for Pirlo, sign them for him, keep him, and make sure you follow through with this project. Otherwise, this last year, like, what was the entire point of this year? What was the objective for this year? I don't understand what the objective for this year was. Was it to win the treble? If it was, Agnelli, I'm sorry, you're deluded if you think a new manager is going to come in with win the treble with this squad. If you've signed him for a project and then bail on the project when the going gets tough, then, yo, you need to ask questions to yourself. Like, what are you trying to achieve?
Yeah, I find myself confused even amongst my own thoughts, to be honest. Mm-hmm. If I'm being completely honest with you guys, I find myself really, really looking at everything as a whole. And I mean, when we look at Pirlo coming in, you know, I brought it up earlier. I raised the question, like, okay, you're telling me we're not in rebuild mode. You're telling me we're going to chase the same expectations, but you've hired somebody with zero experience. You know, then they start talking about this project. Oh, we see this future project. Okay, well, objectives have to be realistic and whatnot, you know. But then all of a sudden now you get this shift as we get closer to crunch time, and it looks like the title has pretty much slipped away now. I was pretty positive, but this one yesterday was pretty much a dagger. I was still feeling good until yesterday. That's pretty much got to be it for that. So now all of a sudden you're starting to flip your shit. Well, you were the ones that made that commitment. And I'm starting to question this. Pirlo, I think, was solely brought in for money. And that would fall in line to yet another scenario where the club is letting the financials dictate what they do and how they act. The same as they do with certain players, certain market opportunities, even if the guy doesn't seem to make sense as a signing, whether they're blocking rivals, whatever they're doing, these moves are strange. And I think the Pirlo signing fell in line with, what are we doing? We have Cristiano Ronaldo, but we bring in a guy with zero experience to try and guide this team. And you have a flux of new players that are all really, really young. So then it's like, okay, everything's not here. Make it sense and level. Like, you have one move that's here, one that's here, it's just a really, really strange puzzle right now where the pieces just don't fit. And this is why I've been saying in terms of Cristiano, for both parties, it doesn't make sense to continue on. Because if you are looking at this as a project you've committed to for several years, well, Paratici comes out saying, no, we've got Cristiano, we're going to hang on to him, he's part of the future. Do you think Cristiano wants to battle for a top 4 spot, or does he want to chase Champions League titles?
Yeah, there's a couple of things to be said about that that I don't see coming into the discussion anywhere really. If you think sponsorship deals, right? So we signed Ronaldo, okay, massive contract spread over 4 years. About nearly 400 million euro in terms of wages and transfer fee. And immediately, a couple of months later, it was done, but it was only announced a couple of months later. Adidas renewed the sponsorship deal for equivalent to, guess what, 400 million euros. So we have Ronaldo. We're coming to the end of our contract. This increases our profile as a club, right? I'm just thinking financial terms now. Football is different; it's different, but in terms of financial, gain that we've made by having Ronaldo, we only really see it in terms of capital coming into the club when we renew our sponsorships. So the point that Paratici may be making is that he's part of the future because we've still got to renew those deals, guys. And guess what? There'll be a hell of a lot more than 400 million euro if he renews. If he extends by a year, then we get the opportunity, because the Adidas deal was 4 years also, if I'm correct. We get to renew that. Then we get legitimate capital coming into the club. This is one of the and it's crucial right now. We don't have capital coming into the club from any real source.
Yeah.
We were banking on getting, we were counting the pennies for every Champions League game that we won, and we felt the loss to Porto because it was going to cost us in the region of 10 to 15 million euros straight away. We're counting the pennies. So there is, financially, there is a point to be made for keeping him, now, again, it's completely separate to football, and I'm not an accountant, I'm a football fan. So I want my team to succeed, and I see the point you made. You've got to build a team around Ronaldo. Another point was made. I think Antonio said it to me last night. Moreno Torricelli made a point that Ronaldo he's the icing on the cake. He's not the guy who makes the play. He's the guy who finishes it for you. You've got to build everything else around him. And we haven't done that. But it's.
The balance has to be there, though. And if all you're doing is chasing this, but you're getting that on the pitch, fuck.
The thing is, we know that's what Agnelli is after. That's where all of his ECA Super League stuff given out about the Serie A and the rest of the teams. Most of it has got a grain of truth in it. The rest of them they're not interested in building their brand. They're not interested in maybe in theory they are, but they haven't done anything about it. I think Sassuolo is the only other team in Serie A that actually owns their stadium, and they were held up as another team that was developing along the lines of Andrea's Juventus, but the rest of them, they're fucking joke. So, and he constantly complains about moving out of this kind of limited financial sphere that we're in Serie A and getting into the big boys league, basically. Do you know what I mean? Making savage money, because Serie A doesn't look any closer to becoming, it's not closing the gap to the Premier League. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I get you, man, for sure. And going back to the whole Pirlo thing, you guys you're set in yes, and I'm just at the point now where I need everything to start making sense, and that's what I was getting at. So if they are gonna stick with Pirlo, let's back them and whatnot. Is it something you guys would do? You said yes. For me, I'm just thinking I'm thinking again. If I look to this team, if I look at what I see on the pitch, Raph alluded to it. We don't get dominated. We don't get owned. There's corrections all over the place that can be made based on quality with the players and whatnot. And when it's been great, it's been pretty damn good. It hasn't been enough? No. How do we demand continuity when he can't play the same lineup? It's crazy. So whatever the club does decide, I need it to make sense, but I need them to actually back it. And that's the part that's frustrating. I need the management. I need to get that feeling that there is a direction, there is a plan, because now all of a sudden, if they're shitting on this guy that they put into that position, because at the first time things go wrong, well, then I start to really come down on them even more. So this goes back to the beginning with the expectations set for a guy like Pirlo. We have to be realistic, and again, I can't help but stress to all the Juventini out there. When you look at Allegri's side to this side, the spine is completely different. And we are banking right now on young guys to save this team. And the people that want to twist this and say, well, you guys have wanted the younger roster for a long time. Yeah, you want them to have a high future
and develop, not come in and be the
fresh legs and whatnot. But you don't want these guys to be the savior. You don't want these guys to be the be-all, end-all that things depend on. You want a good mix so that when you do get later on in the season, these guys are the energy of the team. They're the legs, but you still have that core and that spine that gets the job done and is the guys you can rely on. In the middle of the park, as far as I'm concerned, we have absolutely nobody that you could rely on. Absolutely nobody. Absolutely nobody you can rely on. Vishwaji coming in here, but saying, Al, what is the project though? Well, that's just it. That's just it. I want to know what that is for management. For me, when this all started, I thought they wanted to refresh the roster a bit, but I thought they wanted to get back to the Juve of old, which was that fight, that hunger, that passion, being about the shirt. I'm still not feeling that way. Why though? That's the hard question. I think the project is to get back to that identity, but I just think they're not really sure on how they're going to achieve that. I'm not sure what their direction is. Is it just playing beautiful football? We talked about this. Beautiful football means something different to each individual you talk to.
That's a great point.
To me, playing beautiful football doesn't mean that you're crushing opponents 7-0. It doesn't have to be. It's not a FIFA game. Like, that's not playing beautiful. Playing beautiful football, for me, is a cohesive 11 that all know their role, that gel together perfectly, and when the time comes they have to shut things down, they can adapt to that. When the time comes they have to step on the throttle, step on the opponent's throat, they know how to do it. When a team wants to park the bus, they know how they're going to create. They know what they're going to do to break that opponent. They will make them move that bus if it's parked. That's beautiful fucking football when you can really adapt yourself to whatever is in front of you. How we go about doing that, I don't know. But now we're on third manager. People that were defending Allegri said the team needed a rebuild there. My biggest point is we have not seen it. We haven't seen it yet. And you won't unless
you give him a chance.
Yeah. And right now with CR, he's not the problem, but I think he prevents you from taking the next step of the project. I honestly do.
Yeah.
I was having a conversation with someone yesterday that this was like, I posted something in terms of players we should keep, sell, bench, low, and whatnot. And I was having this discussion about Ronaldo, and I said the decision to sell him is not because he's part of the issue. Like, he's not the reason we're failing.
Exactly.
However, in a period where the club's so fixed on saying we want to rebuild, we have a player who's on 30 million a year that can easily be redistributed to 3 top-class players that can fill 3 different parts in the squad. On top of doing direct swaps in midfield for guys like Ramsey and Rabiot, you can get 2 top-quality midfielders in replacing them, and then you can add 3 players to the squad with those wages. You can get a player like Depay for free, who would come in and be a creative outlet out wide. You could go out there and buy an extra midfielder in Aura with a budget that we already have, and then do whatever you have with the rest of the wages. If we get rid of Ronaldo, we have 30 million there to redistribute to top class players, not just, like a squad filler, because he's on wages that are pretty crazy. But you can actually redistribute that money.
To further bolster your point, Raph, it's actually more than that. It's 30 million net. So on the books, it's actually 60 million Plus the
crazy.
depreciation on his contract as well. It brings it up to close to 90 million euro per season. So it's massive. It's huge. You just can't, like, when you're talking about a rebuild. I know we didn't really want to get into the Ronaldo issue, but when you're talking about a rebuild, you have to bring in the financials of it, and you just can't leave it out. It's part of the jigsaw, unfortunately. And just to come back to the Pirlo thing, because I went off on a good rant there. I mean, for me, I totally agree with what Raph said. You can't bring a guy in and just hang him out to dry after a season. I mean, a guy who's, it's his first job, and then hang him out to dry at the end of the season when he hasn't even had a chance to build the squad that he wants. Do you know what I mean? He's like, I mean, I've heard in interviews there in the last couple of weeks where, he's talked about meeting Bernardeschi on the beach and talking to him, about what his plan was. Like, I mean, this is the sum total of the amount of opportunity he had to work with players pre-season, meeting him on the beach, having a chat about football. Like, he had no pre-season. The guy, he didn't have any chance. He said the same about Kulusevski. He met him on holidays and tried to get some points across. Like, it's we can't hang him out to dry. And also, I just don't want this club to become like a Barcelona or Real Madrid, where we have a coaching merry-go-round every year. And
Exactly.
It just I can't respect that.
You have to have stability in the front. And again, you start creating a coaching carousel. I've been saying it this whole pod. Who's going to want to come into this scenario, this situation? Again, you have a roster that does not reflect the amount of money you've taken out of Champions League, and you're going through coaches. Something's got to give there. If you're a manager, you have to look twice. Anthony's saying Ronaldo's not going anywhere. Buckle up, kids. The decision is in Cristiano's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Always has been. Always has been. Always will be. It's up to him what happens. Delzo9 saying Depay, not good enough, bro. And he's not young either. Here's the thing. It's more how you change this team, how you get pieces in, and keep in mind the financials. The free agent market is going to be used by Juventus without a doubt.
Absolutely.
We just talked about COVID, the effects and everything. Ronaldo's taken 60 mil. It's not 31 that everybody jumps on. That's what he's getting net. So it's massive. They are going to be taking shots in the free agent market. That's just the way it is. And then, yes, Animesh bringing up Ramsey and Rabiot. And this highlights, again, where the management has put us, because this was a bit of the patchwork after bringing in CR, right? And trying to move on from some of those other mids. You bring these guys in, they make big bucks, and Ramsey you can't bank on. And Rabiot's hit and miss for me. Like, he's not straight up awful, like in my opinion, as everybody puts, but he's hit and miss. But again, he's not a profile we need in there. He's very
not for the money he's earning either.
What's that, Raph?
Not for the money that he's earning either.
Exactly. So there are changes that need to be made. No doubt. It needs to be better from the top down. I just, right now, that loss yesterday, I've been pretty optimistic for a while, and I haven't given up hope as of yesterday when we did the pre-match and everything, and I was pretty positive. This one yesterday stung a lot and kind of has killed a bit of my faith and belief because of the fact that we had a week leading up to this thing. A week. And we come out like that, can't get the job done. And as much as we all want to talk about this coaching scenario, the players really do have to take a look in the mirror and not being able to capitalize on these opportunities, these chances. And again, Kulishevsky was at the heart of this thing yesterday. And it was decision after decision after decision that just wasn't cutting it. And this is what I mean when you want to put so much of it on a manager. This guy was running the show, this kid. It's very, very hard to depend on that. Very, very hard.
Absolutely.
You know,
just to come back on an earlier point, how did you guys feel the Bernardeschi left back kind of experiment or
yesterday was a very shit showing for people trying to make that argument, me being one of them.
Yeah, I was eating my hat a bit yesterday as well.
Yeah. For me, it was kind of in my head. It's always just been in that position, a squad filler. We should sign a starting left back, if we can, a backup left back, and then Bernardeschi can literally just be that player in the squad who would fill in that left back, left wing, right wing, wherever we need him to be. I don't think he's a player that I would 100% get rid of. I'd never in my mind thought he should be a starting left back. I always thought at most backup, but
I think it works better. I think it works better for him when he's left wing back. I think when he's true left back, that's when we start to see that shift where it really becomes more negative. I think left wing back, especially when he had Sandro behind him, that's serviceable, more than serviceable. But straight up left back yesterday was not good whatsoever. And to be honest, a lot of our guys were just not good.
Yeah. So, I have to say, I was nervous pre-game looking at the lineup because I was thinking they were going to stick with a 4-4-2, and it looked like Chiesa was going to be on the left. So you had Chiesa, and then the only guy covering him, bar maybe a midfielder, was Bernardeschi. And I was just thinking, all right, well, who's going to cover Bernardeschi? Who's covering Chiesa? And I was just saying, oh Jesus, like this could go really bad, you know. And
look at this here. So we've got Delzo9 coming in to my comment there about Kulishevsky. The coach has to shoulder the blame for playing Kulishevsky, not coaching him well enough to do the right thing. Other coaches do this. We're not reinventing any wheels here. I simply cannot say anything more than a coach does not have a remote control to operate these guys.
Yeah.
Okay. Shouldering the blame for playing Kulishevsky, I don't know, man. If you're lining up in a 4-4-2, you put McKinney out there on another wide. He was going 4-4-2 that shifted into this 4-2-4 thing in attack. Yeah. It wasn't the straight 3-4-1-2 hybrid. So maybe you could criticize him for not going to this hybrid thing, but McKinney's been on a bad hip for a while now. You know, he came in, he looked energetic, he looked better, but we've also seen when he plays out wide that it doesn't work out very well usually. If he slides into that 3-4-1-2, if he slides into that like role we have for Ramsey, then it works good. But I don't really know if I would knock Pirlo for playing Kulishevsky yesterday.
No,
I don't see where he had. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Raph.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say with Kulishevsky, the thing is, when it comes to young players, a lot of people hold youngsters with potential to the same standards as Mbappe's and Haaland, even though that's not the case. Kulishevsky is a player that 2 seasons ago was playing Primavera, last season was playing for a bottom to mid-table team in Parma, and now we're coming in here and expecting him to be like this unreal primary creator for all our goals. That's not the case. He's a player that needs to be nurtured, and it comes back to the same problem. We're signing young players for the future and banking on them now to be saviors. That's not the issue. Pirlo cannot coach. Again, he cannot remotely control Kulishevsky. He cannot make all the decisions for him. Kulishevsky at this time should be learning his trade off of being a squad player or out on loan at a squad that will be able to develop him. That's in my opinion. That's why I think next season, personally, if I could, Kulishevsky would be perfect at a loan at Atalanta for a year. Because again, Gasperini plays this 3 at the back formation where Kulusevski can fit in that kind of right forward role in the front 3. Send him on loan there, but we cannot bank on our youth players this much. It's a joke. We cannot hold them to those standards.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. And Tony comes in here and just saying, Kulu is the least of our problems. What are we talking about? He's a baby still. We have mature players performing like shit. And that's pretty much it. And this is what I've been saying this entire pod is. And this is the difference from that team then that we want to compare to now. It's just you had a spine. You had the mature guys, the seniors performing at the level that's required of them. We weren't banking on the young guys. We were throwing them into a mix here and there, very rarely, might I add, which was also contradicting to Allegri's words, by the way, how he wanted to talk about young players. He was notorious for not giving them opportunities. We moved away from guys because of Allegri, okay? And this is another thing, too. People want to talk about Allegri and whatnot, and where our players, where our roster is and whatnot, some of the financials situations we're in now. Let's not forget, some of those extensions came because of Allegri. I cannot stress that enough.
Kadira.
Okay? I cannot stress that enough. Some of those extensions were because of Allegri. So let's keep everything level here, okay? Because that's one of the things that bothers me, okay? We moved away from players that we probably shouldn't have because of Allegri. We also kept guys. While everybody wants to throw out Marotta's name, Paratici's name, there is absolutely no way coaches are not involved in that. Absolutely no way. Anybody that thinks otherwise, I have to seriously question that because it's just not true. A coach will always be involved in those decisions. So those extensions also reflect on Allegri, okay? I have to be clear there. And that's part that kind of bothers me too. The whole Marotta Paratici thing is completely separate. Yesterday was a dagger in our hearts. It hurts. And now the discussion is amongst Juventini, will we even remain in the Champions League spots? For me, I can't see us sliding like that. However, if the management makes moves like this, and starts coming down the tunnel, starts yelling, intervening like this, what's the reaction going to be? I want to see the reaction because the next one up is the Derby della Mola against Torino.
Yeah.
That reaction to me is going to tell me if we're going to finish in the Champions League spots or not. It's going to be that match. How do you guys feel about Juve? A lot of fans are thinking now, shit, we may not even finish top 4. So what do you guys think?
I think we'll still get top 4.
You think we'll still get top 4, Raph?
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't see that. I genuinely don't think this squad is that bad that we will completely capitulate and end up having a worse end to the season as a team as Roma or Napoli. I think top 4 is still in sight.
Yeah, I think right now they're fighting. They should be fighting for their coach. If Pirlo still has the dressing room, and I believe he does 100%, then they should all realize that while upper management support has been given and they've been vocal about it, that shit can change pretty quick if Juve spiral out of control here. So they've got to get a victory against Torino, but they need to back that up as well. We've seen this. How many times have we seen? Spoken about? Oh, we need a big reaction. We're talking like 5, 6, 7 times this season.
Great point.
But how do you follow that up?
Yeah, and Animesh coming in saying we'll react one match and then shit the bed the next. The fact we haven't won 5 matches in a row entire season says it all. And this is really it. But again, I cannot say this team won't get top 4. I mean, if I look at these other clubs there, I think Milan is even starting to drop up, but Roma's starting to drop very, very much so. Lazio's in 7th right now, 6 points away from us. Napoli's kind of in there. It's Atalanta, Milan, Merida's up there, and they seem to be rolling. And if they're ever in doubt, they can just postpone a match. I think honestly, I can't see a scenario where Juve drops out of the top 4. I can't see it. I just
it's unimaginable, isn't it?
Yeah,
there's no way, man.
Yeah, I can't see it. I cannot see them not finishing 4th. I said it in my written piece for the Bianconeri Zone. We're going to wrap up. This pod has been like we thought it would be, a general discussion on all things. It's hard to find positives right now. But even Allegri said in his interview, looking at all things prospectively, that Pirlo is doing a good job, all things considering.
To all the people that love Allegri so much, listen to him. He's saying Pirlo's doing a good job.
He said Pirlo's doing a good job, all things considered. He said, you go into this season, he spoke about the team losing the heart and soul. That falls into your spine. The spine has changed. We're banking on young guys. To have young guys that we're relying on, the fact that they're not delivering to that level is expected. It should be expected. Is what it is. To get a Supercoppa, if we can pull off the Coppa Italia, you finish top 4, relying on these guys, not having any continuity amongst your lineup, I don't think Pirlo would have done an awful job, all that considered. I think what I said in the written piece was, whatever happens, strap on your seatbelts and get ready for the ride, because it's going to be a bumpy one. We'll see what ends up happening. And man, all we can do, sit, watch, have faith. But, the team's given us a lot of beautiful, beautiful memories. Okay. This run that we're on will probably never be matched. Let's not forget about that. Things have to change. You can't always have it the same and just go on that run and go on that tear as long as we did. We just have to have faith now in that management. And for me, that's where my eyes are locked on. The players, sure, I can criticize. Coach, absolutely I can criticize. But my eyes are locked on Agnelli and his response and what he's going to do. We've talked about the team response, how they're going to go from game to game. My eyes now are on Agnelli and what his next move is.
Get the money out.
Them laying out this plan and this direction.
Yeah.
Okay. I need to see it on this. And Dell's coming in, finishing off our show with your bias towards Pirlo. To me, I supported Maurizio Sarri for a lot of that season, even though I did not want him. But I supported him. Okay? I supported him very much so. And he lost me when I made up my decision that he lost the locker room. That's when Sarri lost me. I said when Pirlo came in, and I said it at the start of this podcast, okay, I criticized management for bringing in Pirlo with no experience, because to me, I didn't know what the project was. I thought we're still trying to chase things because of having Ronaldo around, but then you've hired Pirlo, okay? But I will fully support him while he's our manager. If that's me being biased, if me sharing my opinions and looking at the whole perspective, looking at our roster, looking at all things considered, looking at COVID, looking at the season, looking at our injury list, if that's biased, so be it. But keep in mind, it's all incredible speculation to say another manager would come in and do much, much better. That is strictly speculation. And what we're doing is giving our opinion based on everything we've actually seen this season, which is all we can really do. Okay. But for me, the management is where my eyes are at. That's the only way I can put it. These are the main leaders of this club, and they have their work cut out for them. And that's where my eyes are at. And that's how I'm going to finish off this pod. International break can come at a better time, to say the least. Let's focus on the Azzurri. I want to let everybody know Lewis and I are going to be putting together a little Azzurri show, a little special there. But still, no matter what, this is the club I love. It's the club I will always support through thick and thin, and we have been through worse. Believe, have faith, look to management that they get things right. Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.
Ciao.